pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to request that we postpone or add or delete any items to the agenda. I am going to ask that we add an item 7G to the consent agenda. That would be the agreement between the Social Service Board and the Board of Supervisors. It's the same agenda, same agreement we signed last year. It expired in December 2015, and Kathy Pemberton has signed it and asked that we sign it. So I'd like to add that permission to item 7G. She'd give me the permission to sign that. Any questions? Can I get a motion?
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. At this time, let's see what time it is. We'll go to our first public comment period. This is the first of the two public comment periods. We invite members of the public to share their thoughts on matters and issues that are germane to county business. This is not a forum for criticism or attacks on staff. It is also not the forum for political campaigning or promoting a business. Please keep your comments focused on the issues and subject matter over which this board has responsibility. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes if you're an individual and 5 minutes if you're representing a group. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward at this time.
Jamie Timberlake, 1450 Schroeder Road, your Commissioner of Revenue. Wanted to thank Laura for the accurately depicting my our conversation in the paper, but as about 2 weeks ago when I spoke up here, I came to apologize to Ms. Weiler. When you say something and then you read it written down or hear it back to you, sometimes it doesn't always sound as you meant it. And I have no issues currently with Ms. Weiler or anything going on, so my quote was meant to speak more to the position of a county administrator, an appointed person by this board having power over the elected officials, and that's kind of where my head's been the whole time as far as concerned, so I wanted to personally apologize to her. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Timberlake.
Mr. Chairman, good evening. Joe Walters, 4520 Maddox Crossing Court. I just wanted to publicly thank the Board of Supervisors for the manner in which they considered the middle school renovation project. I think that they've been very thoughtful with their deliberation and consideration, and I sincerely appreciate that. Speaking this evening as a private citizen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Let's move on to,
Wait a minute.
excuse me, I apologize. I'm sorry, I was looking down, Jean.
My name is Jean Gannon. I'm from 3939 Fighting Creek Drive in Powhatan. I just wanted to reiterate what Mr. Walters had to say. I am in favor of the proposal for taking down the junior high and creating a new school building. So if that means anything to you folks, I think we should proceed with it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Gannon. We are going to have a public hearing on that. That's part of the CIP, so we'll be having a public hearing on that. You can speak then to that if you choose to do so. Thank you. Seeing none else, I'll go and close the public comment period. We'll move on to try to get 7A done, which is, excuse me, 7, which is our consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
So move to approve as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, and we need a roll call vote. Thank you.
Mr. Tucker.
Aye.
Ms. Cabell.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Nordvig.
Aye.
Mr. Melton.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. At this time, we'll move on to item, we have several time-sensitive things. We want to make sure the public has an understanding that we're going to do things in certain times. So tonight we have 6:30, we'll begin our certificates of appreciation and proclamations, and then at 7 we'll do a public hearing. So then we'll go back to the agenda and work from there. So at this time, we're going to move on to item 11A, which is proclamation 2016-03. a recognition of Richard Ayers' service on the Planning Commission. Mr. Tucker's going to take that for us.
Come down for us. I got it.
Mr. Ayers got a haircut.
Yeah, he did.
Hey, Richard. Thank you for being here. Mr. Chairman, this is a proclamation in the form of a motion to recognize Richard Ayers' service on the Powhatan County Planning Commission. Whereas the Code of Virginia creates local planning commissions to promote the orderly development of each community and its environs, and to serve in an advisory capacity to the local governing body, and whereas the Powhatan County Planning Commission studies, reviews, recommends action to the Board of Supervisors to ensure decisions are based on the improvement of the public health, safety, convenience, and general welfare of the citizens, and consistency with the comprehensive plan which guides the future development of our community. And whereas Mr. Richard Ayers was unanimously appointed to the Powhatan County Board Planning Commission by the Board of Supervisors on March the 13th, 1995, and attended his first Planning Commission meeting on April the 4th, 1995, and whereas Mr. Ayers served as chairman of the Planning Commission on numerous occasions, being recognized by his peers for his leadership, and whereas Mr. Ayers is a strong advocate, still is, of a well-crafted and flexible comprehensive plan, zoning ordinance, subdivision ordinance, and advocated continually for review and updating of these guiding documents, and whereas Mr. Ayers' encyclopedic knowledge of these guiding documents ensured fair and consistent application of the county's guidelines, and whereas Mr. Ayers' research and respectful questioning of staff, applicants, and the public was regarded by all as an exemplary decision-making process, and whereas Mr. Ayers always balanced competing points of view, business development, fairness to adjacent landowners and applicants, short and long-term impacts, infrastructure, and the environment, and whereas the Board of Supervisors regularly relied on Mr. Ayers and the Planning Commission for balanced and wise advice, whereas Mr. Ayers attended his final Planning Commission meeting on January the 5th, 2016, after 21 years of service. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of Supervisors of Powhatan County that we hereby commend and sincerely thank Mr. Richard Ayers for his service to this community and his modeling of selfless dedication, and calls on the residents of Powhatan County to similarly recognize Mr. Ayers' great contributions to Powhatan and its people adopted this date. That's in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion. I'll second that motion. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any comments?
I would like to make a few comments, Mr. Chairman. Richard, I saw you looking at yourself while Carson was reading the resolution. You probably couldn't believe that was you. Richard, after hearing that resolution, I'm not sure you can retire. You might have to stay on another, at least 10 years. I mean, we can't afford to lose this type of expertise in the county.
I'm sure somebody will fill in there.
They always do, don't they, Richard? Seriously, Richard, thank you for your service to the county. You've been outstanding, and I mean it.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Mr. Ayers, having served 12 years on the Planning Commission with you, you were a great mentor to me. You coached me many times. You kicked me on the table a few times. And you have dealt with many, many things, over the years that your expertise was phenomenal. We would have had consultants sometimes to deal with some of the water situations we were dealing with. And you brought all that knowledge to us. You rolled your sleeves up every meeting, talking about cell towers and all the other things that we said, turn lane warrants and crossover studies and all the things that you do as a planner. But you've been a wonderful asset to the county. I'm jealous in a way. You're going to get to go fishing more often, which I know is something you really enjoy. But thank you for all those years of service, and it means a lot to me and a lot of other people in this county.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that my appointee on the Planning Commission, Owen Walker, has 30-something years on there, and even though he considers you still a rookie, I would like to thank you for your many years of service. We all up here know what a sacrifice that is of time and energy and money sometimes, and I just want to say thank you very much for your time to this county.
Thanks.
You have anything you want to say, Richard? Other than goodbye? Yes, Mr. Tucker, go ahead.
Andrew, mine too.
Angie, you want to say?
Yes, I would just like to say, Mr. Ayers, that I had the difficult task of trying to find somebody to fill your shoes, and I hope that she will come close. I'm sure she will do her very, very best. But 20 years of service, public service is extraordinary, and thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman, Richard, my respect for you is unreserved. You have brought this job a gravitas that all public servants should model. Your deliberations were always objective. They were never dictated by you being self-important. You were never overfond of your own voice. It was never about you. Your opinions and questions and decisions were never about what a good boy, what a smart boy you are. You never sneered. You never projected boredom into the face of applicants, the staff, or the public. You did not so much talk about the landscape of our community, what it should look like. Rather, you reasoned yourself to a path forward to make it so, that fairly balanced competing and legitimate interest. The legacy you have left us all of due consideration, consistency, reasoned analysis, clarity of articulation, active listening, mastery of source material, dispassionate judgment, and vision amounts to a greater gift than all of your individual decisions and all of your individual case positions. You take away from us tonight our gratitude and respect for a job well and fairly done.
That's 2 standing ovations in 20 years, and they've both happened within the last month. It's pretty amazing. Thank you all very much. I really wasn't expecting any kind of tribute. I got a wonderful farewell from the Planning Commission, and I appreciate your gesture and wish all of you well in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard.
All right. Good night, and thank you.
At this time, we'll move on to proclamation 2016-02, recognizing Eagle Scout John Carter Evers. Mr. Norvig's going to take this.
Welcome. This is a proclamation in the form of a motion, and you can stand over here a little bit if you want. Recognizing John Carter Evers' achievement of Eagle Scout rank. Whereas scouting for both boys and girls has been an integral part of our community as well as a positive influence for many years, and whereas the Eagle rank is the highest rank in scouting and is obtained by earning 21 merit badges and implementing skills in a troop leadership position, and whereas, in addition, the Eagle candidate must plan, develop, and direct a major community service project through its entire completion, and whereas on September 15th, 2015, Scout John Carter Evers, member of Boy Scouts of America Troop 800, successfully completed all requirements for achieving Scouting's Eagle rank. And whereas, in earning his Eagle rank, Scout John Carter Evers earned a total of 26 merit badges, overachiever, camped over 141 nights, including 2 long-term camps to the National High Adventure Bases, Northern Tier in Minnesota and Philmont in New Mexico. And whereas for his Eagle Scout project, John Carter Evers built a 29-foot handicap accessible walkway to the Chief Powhatan statue at the Powhatan State Park with landscaping and the placement of 5 benches along the hiking trails with the help of Chief Ranger Lipscomb. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors hereby commends and congratulates Eagle Scout John Carter Evers on this outstanding accomplishment, extends its deepest appreciation for all of his dedicated work, and wishes him the best in all of his future endeavors. This is in the form of a motion to be adopted by the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors on this date, and I would like a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Any comments?
I do. I don't know if you're unfamiliar with what it takes to become an Eagle Scout. It is very challenging, very demanding. This is something on a resume that colleges, employers, et cetera, will be looking at literally for decades to come, and it sparks instant respect in somebody who has this simple little line, Eagle Scout, on their resume. It's a lot of hard work, and he deserves our thanks for giving so much back to his community. Congratulations. Okay, do any board members have a comment?
Mr. Evers, just to follow up on what Ms. Norvik, I unfortunately, there are many things I look back on sometimes and wish I'd done differently, and had I did not achieve the rank of Eagle Scout, I stopped at life. And as I look back on that, I wish I had accomplished that. So congratulations to you. I had been to the park and seen your ramp, had no idea that you were the driving force behind it, so thank you so much, it's beautiful. Do use this as you go into the business world and you put on your college applications, because it says you can set a goal and you can go about accomplishing a goal. So thank you for being a good corporate citizen, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Bravo.
Anyone else? All right, anything you'd like to say?
I'd just like to thank you all for being here today, and thank you for recognizing all my hard work and how long I've been put into this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations again. We'll now move on to recognition, Proclamation 2014-4, recognizing March 15th, 2016 as National Agricultural Day. Mr. Tucker's going to take this one for us. Mr. Timberlake, you going to bring Ms. Smith down with you? Okay.
Ms. Smith, come on down.
Come on down, you're involved in this.
Susan, the chairman of our Rules Committee.
Yep, does a great job.
Mr. Chairman, this is a proposal for a vote on a proclamation recognizing National Agricultural Day, March 15, 2016. Whereas Powhatan County agricultural builds on centuries of progress by constantly seeking advances in science, research, technology, production, and marketing to meet the demands of changing consumer needs and complex world markets. And whereas Powhatan Agricultural helps feed the world, fuels our nation's economy, and is a positive contributor to our nation's net trade balance. And whereas agriculture provides jobs throughout the farm and food industry, including employment for farmers, farm workers, scientists, processors, shippers, and retailers. And whereas the stewardship of Powhatan farmers ensures a sustainable resource base for future generations. And whereas Powhatan farmers uphold the rural character of this county as they provide the most abundant and most affordable food and fiber supply in the world. And therefore be it proclaimed that the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors, in recognition of the vital role that agriculture plays in the daily life of every American, hereby acknowledges the future progress and prosperity of the economy, and in appreciation of farmers and ranchers across Powhatan, adopted this date. That's in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that motion. All in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Any comments? I have one quick comment. Mr. Timberlake, it's not necessary you say something, but you can, I'm sure you do. But we just sat in an economic development study, and they talked about
Yes, they did.
agribusiness, agritourism, and so, this farming community fits very well into what we're trying to accomplish as a board as part of our economic development plans. So thank you.
I believe that too. Thank you for this recognition. There's one particular segment of very unique families of us that probably few of us know. And they are families that have been farming the same land for over 100 years or more. Governor McCall and the General Assembly has requested the Virginia Department of Agriculture acknowledge these families in a program called Century Farm. Currently, there are 3 Powhatan families enrolled in the Century Farm. They're the Clark family, who farms Windsor in the Ballsville area, the Maxey family, Prospect Hill on Red Lane Road, and Kanabe family on Petersburg Road. Several folks have helped me identify 12 additional families that qualify for the program. I believe there are even more. I ask our citizens to contact me at our Farm Bureau office or search the web for Virginia Century Farm if they are interested in enrolling. In conclusion, I would like to recognize and honor those Powhatan families who diligent and dedicated their efforts have maintained farms over 100 years. They have provided nourishment for their fellow citizens, contributed to our economy, and maintained the Powhatan rural character. I thank the board for their continued support of agriculture and forestry programs in the county.
Thank you.
Stay.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you, Mr. Timberlake. Y'all stay close by because we have a proclamation also recognizing National FFA Week, February 20th through the 27th, and National Agricultural Week, March 13th through the 19th. Carson, you going to handle this one too?
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you.
Whereas the future farmers of America and agricultural education provides a strong foundation for the youth of America and the future of food, fiber, and the natural resource systems. And whereas the FFA promotes premier leadership, personal growth, and career success among its members and agricultural education, and the FFA ensure a steady supply of young professionals to meet the growing demands in the science, business, and technology of agriculture. And whereas the FFA emphasis on premier leadership, personal growth, and career success gives direction and purpose to those students who take an active role in succeeding in agricultural education. And whereas the FFA promotes citizenship, volunteerism, patriotism, and cooperation. And whereas in 1947, at a national FFA Board of Directors meeting the week of George Washington's birthday was designated as National FFA Week, and now FFA Week always runs Saturday to Saturday and encompasses February 22nd, Washington's birthday. And whereas FFA Week is an opportunity for the FFA members, alumni, and sponsors to advocate for agricultural education and a time to share with our local community, the Commonwealth, and the nation what FFA is and the impact it has on its members every day. And whereas agriculture is the Commonwealth's largest industry with an economic impact of $52 billion, demands for food, beverages, and fiber, and wood products. And whereas on the average, a Virginia farmer feeds his or her own family plus an additional 155 people here and around the globe. Therefore, be it proclaimed that the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors designates the week of February the 20th through the 27th as FFA Week and March 13th through the 19th as Virginia Agricultural and Virginia Agricultural Literacy Week in our community, and calls upon the county of citizens to also congratulate and recognize FFA members, students, leaders, and the organization for their contributions toward making a positive difference in the Powhatan community and in America's primary industry, agricultural. This is a proposal for a motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that motion. All in favor of the motion as presented? Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Any comments?
Of course he does.
Go for it.
Thank you for this proclamation for our FFA chapters here in the county and Ag Literacy Week and National Ag Day. During Ag Literacy Week, these FFA students and our Farm Bureau members and others in the community will be doing programs in our elementary schools. Again, we thank you. And again, this is a nationally recognized
That's right.
group of FFAers here.
Yep.
Bravo, bravo.
Yep. Bravo. Thank you all for coming out tonight, and congratulations on y'all's national award that y'all recently received.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll move on to Proclamation R 2016-06, and this is a proclamation recognizing the Lions Club, and I am going to be presenting this to them at their dinner in the 1st of March, so we will not be reading that one tonight, but we are recognizing them.
I'll make a motion that we approve the proclamation as written.
I have a motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Tucker. We'll now move on to Proclamation 2016-07, recognizing the best cook in the house, Clara Hollingsworth, from the Food Network's Junior Chopped winner.
Hi, Claire. Stand right here next to me. You want to face that way a little bit, and people can see you. Okay. You can stand here too if you want. All of these proclamations are good, but this one is especially fun. This is a proclamation to my colleagues in the form of a motion recognizing Claire Hollingsworth as Food Network's Chop Junior winner. Whereas Claire Hollingsworth, 10, started cooking at the age of 3. I've been burning things longer than that, I think. And whereas Claire's love of cooking has continued with classes and summer camps at Edible Education, a local program that teaches healthy cooking to kids. And whereas Claire, with the encouragement of her Edible Education chefs, Ann Butler and Whitney Trent, competed on an episode of Food Network's Junior Chop show. And whereas on the Junior Chop show, Claire had to create and prepare 3 dishes from baskets filled with mystery ingredients. And whereas Claire, using her culinary acumen and maturity, created a clamwich with salad and balsamic vinaigrette as the appetizer, a spice-rubbed steak with plum-cot relish, potato puree, and broccoli as the entree, and a bread pudding with orange gummy sauce and fruit salad for dessert.
I'm hungry.
And whereas Claire's flawless execution of her dishes resulted in her being named the winner of Chop Junior, and after winning the show, she once again showed her maturity by donating a portion of her prize money to Feed More, an organization which provides meals to disadvantaged people in Central Virginia. Now therefore, be it proclaimed that the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors hereby commends and congratulates Claire Hollingsworth on this outstanding accomplishment, extends its deepest appreciation for all her dedicated work, and wishes her the best of all in her future endeavors. And this would be in the form of a motion to be adopted by the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors on this date.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Motion passes. We have
I would just like to comment, I read the newspaper article, maybe many of you did too. This young lady has maturity far beyond her years. I was very impressed that she gave away a significant portion of her winnings. Claire, do you mind if we talk numbers real quick? How much did you win, if you don't mind saying so? It was in the paper. It's not, how much?
$10,000.
Say that nice and loud.
$10,000.
$10,000, and you gave away about how much?
1,000.
And you spent all the rest, correct?
No,
What'd you do with the rest?
I gave 500 to my little brother, 500 for some, to go out for a little friend night, and 8,000 for college.
fantastic.
All right.
She's on the right track, and that's her mom. Would you adopt me? And Claire said that next time she comes, maybe she can bring some of her cooking with her. So congratulations, Claire. You have a very good start on what I think is going to be a really terrific future. And last thing, did they make you wear a bunch of makeup on TV?
No.
No? You look good on HD, too. Boy, okay. Well, thank you very much, and congratulations to the whole family on this one.
We'll be getting signed copies to you, so,
Mark just got it.
okay, thank you. Maybe she could have cooked her meal. We had a club sandwich in the other room, but anyway. We now will move on to proclamation 2016-08 National Softball Association Award. And I think Ms. Cabell's going to handle this with our Park and Rec Director and our Director of Utilities.
Okay, I have a proclamation recognizing the 2015 National Softball Association Outstanding Park Award winner. Whereas Fighting Creek Park provides many recreational and leisure opportunities and has been an integral part of our Powhatan community for youth, adults, and seniors since opening in 2009. And whereas the National Softball Association, as one of many organizations, utilize the fields at Fighting Creek Park, working with the county and the Parks and Recreation Department to host softball tournaments at the park. And whereas Fighting Creek Park was nominated by one of the 4 Virginia National Softball Association directors, Alan Spencer, for the 2015 National Softball Association Outstanding Park Award. based on park information, pictures of our park, the number of tournaments held, and the attendance at the tournaments. And whereas Fighting Creek Park was one of over 50 parks from 48 states nominated and went through a lengthy process by the National Softball Association office. And whereas in December of 2015, Mr. Spencer notified the Parks and Recreation Department that Fighting Creek Park had won the 2015 National Softball Association Outstanding Park Award. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors hereby commends and congratulates all those who were involved in creating the vision for and the development of Fighting Creek Park and the current Public Works and Parks and Recreation Departments on receiving this outstanding award, and extends its deepest appreciation for all of the dedicated work, maintenance, and commitment to hosting tournaments, having a positive economic impact, and maintaining an outstanding facility in the community. And I present that by motion.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Comments? I'll have a quick brief one. Ms. Woodall and your staff, kudos. I've been to some of the tournaments that y'all hold, and your staff works extremely hard and represents our county very well. And I'm sorry, Ramona, your staff too. But it's a team effort. And when you get a recognition like that, that means a lot, because it'll say to other organizations how well run everything went and how wonderful the facilities are. So kudos to you and thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
What you do for us is two-pronged. One is certainly for the people who live here, for their recreational needs. Secondly is the economic development potential that we're all struggling with right now, and we look forward to seeing more of the same. Thank you very much.
Any comments from y'all?
Thank you very much.
Not necessary.
It's
Just wanted
great.
to thank you so much for the recognition. It really does mean a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go get this.
At this time, we'll go back to item 8A, and we'll try to get a couple of things out of the way before we start doing our public hearings at 7 o'clock. We're on 8A, which is a Planning Commission member to the Richmond Regional Planning District Commission. Do we have any nominations? I spoke with the chairman of the Planning Commission, and she is interested in continuing to serve on the PDC, and she has done that for a while. So I would make a motion that we appoint Karen Carmack to the PDC representative from the Planning Commission.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
We have any other nominations, I guess? Okay. Seeing none, I'll close the nominations, and we have a motion and a second. Does this need to be roll called?
No.
All in favor of Karen Carmack? Vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We'll now move on to item number 8B, our Economic Development Authority. We have 4 positions open, 1 short position to fill a person who resigned from the EDA, and then we have 3 full-term positions. I have a motion to present to fill the positions. I would motion that we appoint Dan Jones to fill the short-term position that was due to the resignation. I would motion that we have John Watkins fill 1 term as one of the individuals on the EDA, Mr. Russ Holland Jr. as the other one, and Mr. Timothy Benusa as the other one. Are there any other motions on the floor?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion using the same cadre of the people, with the exception of, in place of Dan Jones, Mr. Bob Gibson, who served on the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, has had experience in bringing businesses to Virginia. He worked to bring Maslow Wood Products, for example, from Buffalo to Powhatan County. He worked with Mr. Altman in Dinwiddie County to bring a notable business to that jurisdiction, so I think he's very well qualified for what we want to accomplish.
So we have the motion of Mr. Bob Gibson to replace Mr. Dan Jones. Mr. Latchney, how should we handle this? Is he amending my motion?
Are there any other nominations first?
Pardon?
See if there's any other nominations
Okay.
first.
Any other nominations to fill fill the 4 positions? Seeing none, I'll close the
You
nominations.
can close and then just save out the one where you have 2 nominations for the same seat, and you can vote on the others together, and then save the 1 empty seat, you can vote on those then.
First of all, before we vote, there were other people who had turned applications in, and by no means do I want to slight them in any way. We certainly appreciate their willingness to serve, and there are 3 positions that are currently filled that will be coming, some of them will be coming open very shortly. We would definitely want to consider those individuals for those positions as they open, so we don't want anybody to feel slighted here. So we have a motion to fill 3 spots for with John Watkins, Russ Holland Jr., and Tim Benusa.
And those appointments end June 30th of 2019.
They do.
Is it a motion?
You second that motion?
Second,
So we have a motion and a second. Any
Yes.
discussion on that motion? All in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes 5-0. We'll now have, handle the two, Mr. Jones and
What you
Mr.
do is just take, I mean, they're really just nominations. You just take a vote on the first nomination. If he gets 3 votes, you're done. If he doesn't get 3 votes, then you take a vote on the second nomination.
Okay.
Okay.
So I take them in order that they were
Take them in
nominated?
the order that they were nominated, yes.
Okay.
Can we have discussion at
Yeah.
some point?
Yeah, you
Tom?
can
We can do discussion now.
Yeah, you
Now?
do discuss,
Before
now
we
would
vote.
be,
I was
yes.
going to ask for that.
Before
So-
the vote, yeah, you would discuss
Okay.
before the vote, yes.
So any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would also like to echo what the chairman just said. We have basically 4 slots here, and we had 8 applicants, I think, altogether. All of them were very strong. I struggled to whittle it down to 4 people, and to be honest with you, there's some pros and cons to each. I don't think any of these candidates would have done a bad job for us. So good for Powhatan for having such talented people wanting to dedicate their time and their ability. I would like to speak to Mr. Jones. Mr. Williams just brought up some pros of Mr. Gibson, and I completely agree. Mr. Gibson is very qualified for this job. Mr. Jones, just very quickly, he turned in an actual resume along with his application. And I'll just kind of tick down some of these things he's done. Capital Region Land Conservancy, Vice President, Board of Directors, James River Master Naturalist, Founding Board Member, St. Francis St. Emma Board of Directors, Finance Committee, Habitat for Humanity Board of Directors, Elizabeth Randolph Lewis Powhatan YMCA Board of Directors, Rotary Club Board of Directors, Foundation Chair, Powhatan County Leadership Institute Founding Board Member, Powhatan Tomorrow. I could go on, but the name that keeps recurring through a half a page of items is Powhatan, 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 Powhatan. In my opinion, Mr. Jones has given a lot back to this community, and that tilted my decision in this particular case. So as I said, both are very qualified for the job. For me, Mr. Jones was very, very strong, and that kind of tipped it for me.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Norvig. Any other comments? No other comments, okay. Just brief. Again, Mr. Gibson brings great qualities, and so does Mr. Jones. So I don't think we'd be hurt with either one. I tended to kind of lean towards, as Mr. Norvig had said, the involvement in the Powhatan community is something I think is important, along with the business experience that the gentleman brings. So, by no means does this mean that Mr. Gibson wouldn't do a wonderful job, and hopefully we can capture his services going forward as we look, as we continue to change the makeup of the EDA. So that's all I have to say. We have a motion. Well, actually, we have a candidate, and we have a second on that motion.
You just vote on the first candidate that was proposed, and then if you don't get 3 votes, then you vote on the second
Okay.
candidate.
All in favor is Dan Jones on the EDA?
Aye.
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 Those opposed?
No.
We have, the motion passes 4-1. Thank you. We now move on to our public hearing, which is item 10A. Hold on, make sure I'm right.
Yes, sir, it's 10.
It is, 10A, I apologize. Resolution R 2016-06, amending the FY 2016 Powhatan operating budget by transferring $25,000 from general fund contingency.
No, we're on 10A, which is the public hearing, which is a public hearing on the preliminary
My
FY.
engine's got a different.
I'm sorry, it's 12A. I'm sorry, the public hearing is 12A.
It
and it's
is,
a
we only have
pub-
one public hearing, I apologize.
And
Okay.
it's a public hearing on the.
Certainly apologize, time-sensitive issue. So we're now going to move on to the public hearing on the preliminary FY 2017 five-year capital improvement program, which is called the CIP, in consideration of Resolution R 2016-14 with the revision date of 2/20/2016, which we all have a copy of on the dais here.
So at this presentation, staff does not have a PowerPoint presentation. We have made 2 PowerPoint presentations on the preliminary CIP. The board has also held 3 workshops on the preliminary CIP. At the last workshop which they held, which was last Wednesday on February 17th, the board asked that staff revise the resolution that is found on page 136 of your agenda, R-2016-14. And in your agenda, it speaks to adopting the entire preliminary CIP and authorizing, preliminarily authorizing $67 million in bond proceeds. On February 17th, the board asked staff to revise that so that the resolution would be authorizing the replacement of the junior high school project with the water tank, only that project, and that would make the bond amount for just that project $35.4 million. So the junior high school with the water tank for $1.5 million. And that is what Mr. Melton is referring to. You have in front of you on the dais a revised R-2016-14, and at the top it says the 2/20/216 version. So we have both versions. If you were to take action, staff would ask that you let us know what action you're taking. So staff has no other presentation to make, and we stand ready to answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Williams, you want to go first? You look like you're ready to talk. Thank you.
When we had the last meeting on Wednesday, Mr. Tucker had asked for, I believe, looking at the debt from the 12% expense ratio, not going to the 15 that was brought up. Was that provided? Did I miss that?
No, as we stated, that will be provided at the meeting on March 9th, and the financial advisors are coming back to the meeting on March 9th.
So, Mr. Chairman, all right, there are two possible, I'm sorry, Mr. Williams, are you done? I'm sorry, I apologize.
Keep going.
The 2 possible paths forward here, one is to go for the 71, which is the entire CIP. The other one is, what I just heard, is just the water tower and the rebuilding of the middle school.
Correct. And if you just go that route, which is the
We will be
35.4
below the
million, you're
12%.
well below the 12%. And that is your current policy.
Because
And I
if
think that
you-
was the board's thinking.
If you remember, Mr. Tucker, when we did options back in last year, we did options, and I think they came in at around 55 million or 54 million or whatever that was. That was well within our 12% policy. What grew, and for the public, the other CIP projects we have in front of us is Public Safety Communication System, a $15 million placeholder. That's doubled from what we saw in our work we did last year with the school board and the county staff. The public safety courthouse Sally Port, a placeholder of $2.4 million. Computer-aided dispatch, a placeholder of $600,000. Field improvements, placeholder of $825,000. Joint vehicle facility, $3.6 million. And then major mechanical repair to Powhatan Elementary School, placeholder of $4.6 million. So what Mr. Tucker's saying and what we're trying to do here is go ahead and give the opportunity for the schools to get started on the work they need to do to prepare if we are going to do the middle school renovation. So we're breaking them into two parts. We will be meeting on March, Pat, I'm sorry, what day, was March 7th?
Ninth.
9th.
March 9th.
March 9th, to roll our sleeves up and ask more dialogue on all of the projects that I just mentioned, besides the school renovation and the water tower, which is needed because we have to have fire suppression at the school. So,
Mr. Chairman, I think what Mr. Williams and I are looking at here is trying to give the schools the green light to go forward with the middle school renovation, rebuilding, and the water tower, but still take a hard look at the 12% debt limit and not buy the whole pig yet until we have that figure and we can back into it to see whether we can hold the debt to 12 rather than 15. So I'm in favor of moving forward with the approval of the middle school and the water situation.
okay.
But I'd like to put off the rest of it until March the 9th.
And I think that's pretty much why the resolution we have in front of us, if you see the updated resolution, that the board desires to provide an additional approval and direct the county administrator and the other county staff to work with the county financial advisors and bond counsel on the financing of $35.4 million for the replacement of the junior high school project with the water tower. So that's kind of what's before us in
Yes,
the
sir.
amended version.
Mr. Chairman.
Of course, we're still going to have a public hearing on this, so.
All right.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may follow up on Mr. Tucker's comments. So we wouldn't be adopting the 5-year CIP, but we would be adopting a resolution directing the county administrator to go forward with the financing or the proposed plan of finance for the middle school.
Correct.
Is that your understanding, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Tucker?
That's what I'm ready to vote on.
Mr. Chairman?
It
Hold on.
does say that we will not go forward with the financing until you
Adopt the rest of the CIP.
adopt the resolution authorizing the finance. It directs us to start planning for it. It doesn't allow us to actually issue any debt. As the bond, not the bond council, the financial advisors told the board last Wednesday, this is not the authorization to issue bonds for $35.5 million. It is just authorization for us to continue planning for that. It is authorization that you are going forward with the middle school project. So we are not going to be issuing the debt yet. We would want to wait until we knew the total debt package, and then we would work on that.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chairman, to follow up on Pat, yeah, that's my understanding that it's a two-step process.
Correct.
We're directing you to go forward, working with Davenport in the preparation. But there's another process why we would actually go forward with a resolution for the bond issuance.
That's correct.
Now, the issue with Mr. Tucker and I is, are we adopting a 5-year CIP tonight, or are we just doing this authorization for you to go forward with Davenport in the middle school?
It clearly states that the board approves the replacement of the junior high school project with the water tank and a proposed plan to finance $35.5 million with the understanding that the final FY17 5-year capital improvement program, including the final list of approved projects, will be adopted in accordance with the county's customary budget procedures and applicable Virginia law. You are not adopting the 5-year CIP this evening. You're approving the junior high project with the water tank project. That's what it states in the now therefore be it, the first clause.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Last
Hold on,
time.
hold on, excuse me, Mr. Durnall.
sorry.
Dave, do you have any other follow-up
done?
questions?
No, I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that, Mr. Williams. So what I get out of it is last time we were uncomfortable with rolling past the 12% limit and headed toward a new 15%, et cetera. So the option we were looking for, instead of what I call the kind of old resolution, we asked for a new resolution that would allow us to chunk these projects. And the one we're looking at right now is for renovating the junior high, plus the water system required. We are telling you, yes, you may go ahead with the plan to set up the bonding for this project. We are not talking about any other project. There's no Sallyport, there's no communication system, nothing, just the school and the water system, so that we can be on schedule with the school project, which has gates they have to meet. In the meantime, we get to take a step back and look at these other capital projects to make sure that we're doing it as cheaply, as efficiently as possible, and frankly, that we can afford to do it.
Yes.
Is that a good summary?
Yes.
I just want to clarify one thing that you said. You mentioned that it authorizes me to proceed with the bonding, and
But
in Section 2 says...
No money.
Right.
The
The bo-
planning, I'm
right.
sorry.
The board hereby directs the county administrator and other county staff to work with the county's financial advisor and bond counsel on financing of the junior high school project with the water tank in conformance with the proposed plan of finance, with the understanding that no financing will be incurred on behalf of the county without an authorization from the board, which would provide the authorization at a later date.
Correct. So we'll be doing the actual, pulling the trigger on spending the money down the road later.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions of staff at this time? If not, we'll open the public hearing on Resolution R 2016-14, version 2/20/2016. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward at this time. Wow.
I would also like to note it was advertised in the paper as a public hearing on the entire CIP, so they can make comment on any project within the CIP
That is-
if they wish.
Thank you, Ms. Weiler. Thank you very much for that.
Please, we're talking about $35 million. Somebody say something.
Wow. Okay. Well, we had a couple people speak at the public comment period in support of it, so. No one wishing to speak at the public hearing. We'll close the public hearing. I'll make a motion. I move we approve Resolution R 2016-14, amended version 2/20/2016 as presented. My comments are that I have been for the renovation of the middle school from day one. It's past its point, it's due. Unfortunately, we did get kind of a surprise when we had to deal with the fire suppression, which causes us about another $1.5 million of water needs for that building. So we will definitely don't want to build it and not have it protected by fire. So I am in support of the motion, and I have been from day one. Thank you.
Second.
Any other comments?
Let's vote.
Mr.
Roll call.
Melton?
Aye.
Mr. Tucker?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Nordvig?
Aye.
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Y'all got your marching orders. Okay, now we'll turn back. So we'll now move on to old business. Resolution R 2016-12, amending the Powhatan County Employee Classification and Compensation Plan, found on page 49 of your packet. And I think Ms. Jones is going to take that for us.
Good evening. I'm here to speak to the resolutions pertaining to Powhatan County workforce tonight. The first one is Resolution R 2016-12, and it pertains to the amendment of the compensation and classification plan. The county contracted with Condrey and Associates in November 2014 to develop this classification and compensation plan. The board adopted that plan on June 15, 2015. That contract with Condrey and Associates allowed for an employee appeal process if employees didn't feel that their title or their job description or their grade was correct. And that process began in 2015 and was completed in January 2016. We've attached a summary of the appeals, and I can save you some time if you want to just go to page 63. Those highlighted areas are what changed from the original previously adopted compensation and classification plan, whether it be, again, a job description, a grade, or a title. And there's a synopsis of it on page 73 and 74, which says what happened and what didn't happen. And we're asking to have the compensation and classification plan be amended for the results of this appeal process. And any questions?
I have a comment more than a question. Linda, thank you. It was very detailed, the information, the highlighting of it all, brought to attention. So basically what we've got is a plan that was amended based upon the appeals through.
From
to-
employees, that is correct.
To the employees. And then they turn it back to you and you put it all together so we can digest it and adopt it.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
yes.
So the system worked as it was supposed to work?
For the most part, yes, sir. Okay, the second resolution that,
No, wait.
I'm sorry.
Got to pass that one first.
Oh,
And then you can go to the second
Okay.
resolution. Any other questions of staff on the resolution, R 2016?
I like your
-12?
style though, Linda. We could be out of here by about 15 minutes.
Move it
Yeah, Let's go,
along.
let's go. I like that.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion for the Resolution R 2016-12, amending the Powhatan County Employee Classification and Compensation Plan.
So moved as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Tucker?
Aye.
Mr. Melton?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Nordvig?
Aye.
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Now we'll move on to Resolution 2016-13, amending the FY 2016 adopted staffing plan. You can go now, Linda.
thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Resolution R 2016-13, as you stated, does amend the FY16 adopted staffing plan. The board previously adopted the following resolutions. On May 18, 2015, for R 2015-41, you adopted the FY16 staffing plan. On that same date, Resolution 2015-49 budgeted and appropriated the funds for 2 additional sheriff's deputies. On June 15, 2015, R 2015-56 adopted the Powhatan County Employee Classification and Compensation Plan. And on December 7, 2015, Resolution 2015-110 amended the staffing plan by changing 1 part-time receptionist in the Department of Social Services to full-time. In the attachment that we've given you, the first 2 columns, highlighted in green, basically tell you what you had adopted and then anything that was amended by the comp and classification plan, the resolution you just passed. And then the last 2 columns, highlighted in blue, are a few changes that have been made since that time, most of which are going to be the Powhatan County Sheriff's Office. They recommended changes to the staffing plan, which will increase their efficiency and effectiveness of the office, and I will let Sheriff Nunnally speak to that further.
Thank you, Linda. Any questions of Linda at this time?
And before the sheriff gets to the podium, I just want to point out that on page 96 of 137, that the totals are not correct, and so we did hand out to you a corrected page. It looks the handout like this. These totals are not correct, and the corrected totals for page 96 of 37 are on the back side of that. So there was a formula in the Excel things that we caught, so I'm sorry, Sheriff Nunley, to interrupt you.
Oh, thank you. Brett Nunley, Sheriff's Office. First, they were correct. Most of those changes you're seeing are coming from my office. I would like to thank my Chief Deputy Sadler and my Captain Searfoss and the County Administrator Pat Wheeler for a lot of assistance this last couple of weeks doing some reorganization in my office. We've been in the process of streamlining our chain of command. The chart you have there with the new organizational chart represents what we've done over the last month. We've eliminated some redundancies and changed some grades, hoping to provide the county with more service in a little bit more fiscally responsible manner. Briefly, we've eliminated the grade 26 undersheriff position. At one time, we had really 2 number 2 positions. We replaced that with a grade 25 captain. We eliminated a grade 23 lieutenant and replaced it with a grade 22 first sergeant. We eliminated a grade 22 first sergeant, replacing them with a grade 21 sergeant. And we eliminated a grade 22 first sergeant in patrol. This allowed me to create the patrol lieutenant position, add a deputy to patrol, a detective to our investigations division, an animal control deputy, another deputy to our courts division, and we added 5 part-time deputies to help us offset some of the staffing issues in a little bit cheaper manner. We still realize the savings of approximately $70,000 in salaries before you add in the benefits. By lowering these grades and eliminating some of the unnecessary administrative costs, we're not only producing savings today, but also eliminating the amount of costs in future budgets. So we've managed to do more with less. We wanted to make these changes now because we saw an opportunity to save money on this year's budget. But it's going to be very desirable in next year's budget also. Per discussions over the last month in the matters, such as comp leave payouts, holiday repays, et cetera, the county administrator and I have been adjusting policies to eliminate any unexpected and unfunded mandates that you may have had to deal with in the past. And we're well aware with the many CIPs that are being discussed that y'all are having to deal with, that we are going to have some difficulties in purchasing vehicles and doing some other things. So after speaking to the county administrator, I have suggested possibly that we use some of the savings achieved in this year's budget to purchase a car now, and to use the remainder of our savings to help offset the paying down of the accrued time that y'all are having to deal with this year. And so I'd like to thank the county administrator and the board for their time, and thank y'all.
Any questions of the sheriff?
No, but a comment.
Go ahead.
This is exactly the kind of dialogue we engage in. Thank you very much for doing it.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
I have a comment also. Sheriff Nunley, thank you. As we talk, there's a new sheriff in town. So a leadership model is something, when you get a new sheriff in town, that would be expected. I think you ran on that. To Mr. Sadler, Mrs. Foss, thank you for working so hard to help Brad and y'all put this plan together, and much appreciated. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any questions on resolution R 2016-13, amending the FY 2016 staffing plan, adopted staffing plan? Can I get a motion?
Actually, I have a question, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Pat, could you, the corrected page, the corrected totals, can you run us through what you would consider the most important points on here? Because, I'm sorry, but the corrected numbers are new to me. And I want to make sure I'm fully understanding what I'm voting on here.
So I'm going to start in the first 2 columns, which is what was the adopted budget. In the adopted budget, there were 198 positions. That's actual bodies,
Correct.
employees. The FTE, which is the full-time equivalency, was
Ms.
one.
Weiler, I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh.
The 198 is not what the sheriff has, in case anybody
a
misunderstood.
total
Oh,
that.
no, we're looking
I
at
know
the
that.
total county.
I know
I'm
that.
sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. The question is about the total county, and the total for, well, I'm just going to stick
ahead.
with the total county. The 198 positions, but 170.35 FTE, full-time equivalency. So you reach 1 FTE if you work 40 hours a
Right.
week approximately. So then if you look at the next column for all the changes that were made for the class and comp plan, again, the number of positions is 198, and the FTE is 170.35. So to implement to just make the changes for the comp and class plan, there's no changes to the number of positions or the FTEs. In the third set of columns, which takes into account our 2015 49 and our 2015 110 and 2 other changes, you increase the total number of positions by 3, and you increase the FTEs by 2.8. And my screen has locked up, and so Linda's going to help me remember. One thing that you did is that you added 2 sheriff deputies.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 2 of the bodies. The third position that you added a Commonwealth attorney, an assistant Commonwealth attorney,
Correct.
but that was at .5.
Right.
Did we not capture somebody else in the clerk's office too?
No, and the next thing that you did was in the social services office, you had 3 people and they were all working .7, but you took one of those positions and you increased it to full-time. So you went from a .7 FTE to a 1.0 FTE. So that's an addition of .3 FTE, which is how you get to 2.8 FTEs. It's 2 sheriff deputies, a .5 assistant Commonwealth attorney, and a .3 in the social services.
Okay.
And you get to 3 positions because it's 2 deputies and a Commonwealth attorney. Okay. Then you go forward in the sheriff's reorganization. The only thing that changed is the sheriff added 5 additional positions, and they're part-time deputies that serve in the courthouse. So where he had 5 deputies working 2 FTEs, he now has 10 deputies also working 2 FTEs. So he has the 10 people working the same amount of hours as the 5 people worked. And so the dollars aren't any different. It just allows the sheriff more flexibility and helps him staff the courthouse.
And the FTEs are the same, 173.15.
Right.
Because he
Correct.
eliminated full-time positions and converted them to part-time as he should.
That was kind of my question.
No,
is
he
how-
didn't eliminate any. He changed full-time positions
To
to
part-time.
lower grade full-time positions. He didn't take any full-time
Okay.
positions and make them part-time positions.
Okay.
But he lowered grades on all of those positions that he told you. And
Right.
then he,
That was the missing piece for me.
Right,
Plus,
and-
you know, how we get from 198 to 206.
right,
on-
and the 198
I
goes
get
to
that.
201, and then the 201 is an additional 5 positions, and that's the 5 court.
Now I get it. Okay.
Courthouse.
I didn't understand. I
Right.
knew the jump to 201 had at least the 2 deputies from last
Right,
year.
Right,
But then how we got to 206 was my mystery. So you just
Right.
answered my question. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions on Resolution R 2016-13? We have a motion and a second.
we don't have a motion yet.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve R 2016-13 as presented.
Second?
We have a motion and a second now.
Mr. Tucker.
Aye.
Mr. Tucker. Mr. Nordvig.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Cabell.
Aye.
Mr. Melton.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. We'll now move on to item 9C, Strategic Action Plan Monthly Update, found on page 106 of your packet.
My tablet has frozen, and I can't
Here, I
get
can-
to that agenda item, but so I'll read off of Mr.
Here you go. There you go.
I apologize, my tablet. We're trying to save money by not printing, and sometimes it backfires on you. So the status report, the last time we did a status report was on November 16th of 2015, and any changes from that date to today's date are highlighted in yellow. And we, on priority LD2, update of the comprehensive plan number 3, the Planning Commission is reviewing the comprehensive plan at this time. If you go to priority EC1, which is create and implement an economic development plan to include agribusiness, you have now been presented with the economic development plan, and we anticipate you adopting that in March. And the consultants will conduct a community meeting to present the plan, and that is going to take place in March also. On EC2, which is redirect and reconstitute the EDA, you did receive, there were job descriptions, not official job descriptions, but in the economic development plan were suggestions for who you would want in an EDA, and we did solicit a bank of resumes, and you have now appointed the EDA, and so that item is complete. On HS1, which is structure the new fire EMS management department, which is now called the Fire and Rescue Department. The board was presented with the Virginia Department of Fire Program Study in January, so that's complete. It's had on next task that we would revise the Powhatan code if it was recommended, and they made no recommendations for changing our code. In fact, they said we did a very good job in writing that code, which was written by Chief Singer, and collaborate with the volunteers and county staff to implement the plan, the policies and procedures, that's ongoing. In HS2, which is transfer the responsibility of the emergency communications to the county administrator and relocate the 911 center, we had said that in December of 15, we would identify the department to which the 911 services would report and identify physical locations, and we did complete that in December of 15. We've identified that the communications should report to Chief Singer, and we provided, I think, 3 different locations for the 911 center, if I'm correct. The next item, which is HS3, which is evaluate the needs of our population. The needs assessment has been complete, as reported to me by the Social Services Director. And under the priority ED1, can consider how future meetings with the school board may be useful in
Excuse me,
achieving
Mr.
greater
Chairman?
collaboration.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
Pat, to interrupt your flow
Mhm.
here. Under what you just said about the develop a needs assessment,
Correct.
it says nutrition, recreation, financial education, transportation, support system, affordable housing. Transportation is the one that caught my eye there. We say that's complete. I've been working with social services and others to determine Powhatan's transportation needs for example, physically disabled, financially challenged, et cetera. And so the needs assessment, if it includes transportation, where do I see that information?
I don't have that information. I was just reported back to me by the Social Services Director that it is complete, but we will get that for you so you can see what the needs assessment.
It would be one more
entailed.
useful piece of the
Yes.
puzzle that I would like to have to determine our transportation needs in total.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll get you that. In scheduling meetings with the school board, you have 3 meetings scheduled for the first quarter of 16, which was on January 20th, February 3rd, and February 17th. You have a meeting scheduled in March on 3/23, and the meetings for June and September and December are to be determined yet. On IN4, develop a communications infrastructure master plan for the public safety communications system. The plan was completed in December, and it was presented to the board in January. And on the BOS, the IT phone master plan, the plan is complete. It was done in-house by Mr. Buzzard. And at this time, we have no plans to come forward with any funding, and we'll reevaluate that a year from now for a phone system. On the development of the broadband, the board did form a citizen advisory committee. That's complete. We're working on the RFP. It doesn't say that, but we are. And that's the end of the report.
I have one more question, Mr. Chairman.
Go right
Does the
ahead.
broadband advisory committee, are they going to have scheduled meetings, or are they ad hoc? How's that work?
They are an ad hoc committee in that once their mission is complete, it will be the end of we do plan on having regular meetings, and we have not yet scheduled the first regular meeting, which we hope to do within the next month, is have their first regular meeting.
Great. And since there was such a great public interest, does that show up on our website then as a upcoming meeting that people could
Yes,
find?
my understanding, and I'll verify this, is any of your boards and commissions do show up on the calendar, but I'll verify that.
Okay.
If not, we do have a whole page dedicated to broadband, and we'll make sure it's publicized there.
Great, thank you.
Any questions of the strategic action plan update? Other than, wow, a lot of work still being done. Okay. Now we'll move on to item 10A, Resolution R 2016-06, amending the FY 2016 Powhatan County operating budget by transferring $25,000 from general fund contingency to capital projects fund for the installation of security cameras at the library. And who is going to present that?
I was looking for Ms. Schubert to start, but I will do that.
Okay. It's found on page
If you-
119 of your packet.
125.
excuse me, 125 or?
And also, Ms. Martin is here to answer any questions, and she'll be able to answer the more detailed questions of this item. The library has a current security system, and we budgeted to replace that system in FY16, and we budgeted, the board budgeted and appropriated $17,000. They did receive quotes, and those quotes came in at $42,000, so we're asking for an additional $25,000, and it would come out of contingency. So if you see the resolution, it's a transfer from contingency to the project. And on page 121, you see the contingency memo, which shows the balance in the contingency fund. If you were to approve this resolution, the balance would be $174,000. So I apologize, I don't have any more detail on the security cameras, except that I could read the agenda statement to you if you would like.
Not necessary.
And Ms. Martin will answer any questions. But they currently have 16 analog security cameras that are installed to protect the customers and the library's assets. The existing cameras are very low resolution and difficult to see the level of detail needed by the library staff. In addition, the existing cameras store data to an individual tape system, which makes review of the tapes extremely tedious and time-consuming. The proposed camera upgrades will replace the existing 16 cameras with high-resolution cameras. There'll be a new digital storage system, and there will also be 3 additional cameras. So, with that, I stand ready to answer any questions, or more importantly, Ms. Martin is here to answer any questions you might have on the library. And Ms. Carter is also working on this project, so she can answer questions.
Okay, you want to have any questions of staff? Mr. Williams?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Martin, would you come down, please?
Please
Yes,
state
sir.
state your
Welcome.
name.
Peggy Martin, I'm the Public Library Director.
Give me
Thank
the
you.
history, Peggy.
Pardon me?
Give me the history.
The history is, this was originally, the estimate was based on a 2013 quote. The system that's in there now is an analog system. Obviously, the technology now is all digital. In addition to the cameras that need to be replaced, we are asking for exterior cameras so that there's a camera at the staff exit when they leave the building after dark at night. In the back of the library, they'll have a camera there. The patio that the Rotary built, there are 2 entrances there as well now. So there are 2 additional cameras for that, and 1 at the front door. You know, we've seen an increase in traffic there because of the park system, the trail system. And unfortunately, the quote came back at $42,000, so. Ms. Carter can speak to the, she's putting out an IFB now, as I believe, and we're hoping that the estimates will come back lower once it's a competitive bid.
I understand the issue about security on the outside. What about on the inside? What do you use the cameras for on the inside?
The cameras are used to, there are displays behind the desk so that when we just have 2 people working at night, they can see all over the library. You know, basically, it's just for the safety and security of both the library users. You know, if somebody's in the children's section, then there is a visible way to see if any adults are wandering in there that, you know, could possibly, you know, be of, you know, not safe for the children. And we also have cameras in the meeting corridor so that even though that's not physically attached to the library, we can see if there's anything going on back there when the staff are at the front desk. Unfortunately, there have been incidents in the past where the cameras in the security system has been used for law enforcement. And we've had a couple of instances where teenagers have, you know, been missing for a while, so their parents want to know where they've gone. And to back up the system now and look at those records, it's very laborious. And for prosecution's sake, there's just not the quality. You can't really see the face. You can see that there's somebody in an area, but you can't see the detail that would be needed for a prosecution.
But it's more for monitoring what's going on inside for the two people behind the desk to be able to see everything within the library.
Right.
That's the main focus, though, is it not?
Yes, it is.
You know, I would think the criminal prosecutions and the criminal things or the law enforcement things would be a small part of it. Is that correct?
Well, we certainly hope so, but yes.
I'm hoping so.
Yes.
Because I like the library. I don't want to be going to a crime-ridden.
Well, it's not a
I
crime-ridden
know,
place,
I
but
know.
unfortunately, you know, it's a public building, just like the county administration office and, you know, the village building. Any public place can have any person come into it. And so for the safe and security of both the staff and the public, we feel like it's really necessary to have a better quality system.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. So Peggy, just so I understand, so the 42,000 is a placeholder that we hope that we do not exceed.
That's correct.
Okay. And if my kids had gone to the library when they were teenagers, I'd be happy as heck they were hanging out in the library, not somewhere else. So if you
Right.
had them on camera, I'd have been pretty happy, so.
And just to reassure you that that information is not for public dissemination, so it's not an invasion of people's privacy. It's only used if it needs to be used.
Understand. Any other questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Peggy, you know I support you and I love the library, but this is a tough one for me. Mr. Williams and I were just looking at, I pulled something up on here. I saw this when I was at home and I thought, man, that's a lot of money for a camera security system. That's the
Right.
first thing that hit my mind. So I did a little research and I just pulled it up here and showed Mr. Williams as well. At Home Depot, you can get a high def, and I know there's differences between a house and a library, I know that. But this is a 2.1 megapixel high def camera system. It's 18 channel. You can get them wireless, you can get them hardwired. This has 11 cameras and 5 dome cameras, you know, the kind of half globes that go in the ceiling, for $3,699.99. So the initial cost coming in at $17K, I almost think, well, you know, you got to wire the building and you got some stuff maybe different than a home. But man, we're starting to talk $42,000, and I'm looking at Home Depot under $4,000, and I'm just not seeing what costs that much more money. Do you have any comment on that? Because to be honest with you, I'm not prepared to fork over that money right now.
Right. Well, all I can really, probably the best way to address that is to go ahead and proceed with the IFB and see what comes back. I mean, from what I understand of the proposal, the quote that was received by Ms. Carter, it's to remove the old existing system. Also, you know, you've been in the library and you realize that the ceiling in the library is, I don't even know how high, it's pretty high. For example, just to pull one cable to allow for another wireless access point earlier in the year for the library cost us almost $1,000. So it's the physical layout of the building that really adds to the construction cost. As far as the actual camera equipment, I'm not an IT person and I can't really speak to, you know, what the difference is between a Home Depot camera versus, you know, the things that have been proposed by this company. You know, Randy or Ms. Carter might be able to better answer those questions for you.
The first question that pops to mind, Peggy, is when you mentioned, you know, pulling out the old system and all. Wireless, there's a bunch of wireless systems now, and I'm almost positive a professional security firm would have that. No, Randy.
Right.
Hold on. I have another question.
Okay.
My son actually brought this up. He brought up a component of this cost. I understand you want to keep people secure, and our first job up here is the health and safety of our citizens. So you got me there, no problem at all, okay? Can you help me out with a second component, which is theft of articles in the library? How much dollar amount is stolen or missing from the library, let's say in a year, if you know that figure? I'm comparing that to how much a security system costs, you know,
Right.
to have 10,000 of this being, you know, for making sure nothing walks away, shall we say, and you only lose $100 of old paperbacks in a year, that's not a very good trade-off either. So I need that piece of the puzzle explained, do you know?
Okay. Well, if we were to try to put in a security system to keep materials from walking out of the building, then that's an entirely different technology. That's radio frequency IDs, and then we would have to put in a security system. You know, as you go through bigger libraries, academic libraries, you remember when you go through a gate and it
Well,
buzzes?
I guess
So
when
that's
I-
a,
when
that's a
I-
different system.
Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt, and as an airline pilot, I walked through plenty of those gates
Right.
without my shoes on. I don't get that, but anyway. The question I would have more is, you notice something missing and you review the security footage. So not necessarily anything that's gonna activate as they walk out, but just,
Okay.
oh, gee, you know, that set of encyclopedias or that globe or whatever is gone missing. Let's look at the camera. Do you know how much you lose in a year?
I don't think that that is the, I mean, that is certainly something that the camera system could be used for, but I don't think that's the primary purpose of it.
Right.
If we found a pattern where, you know, again, it's a public library, so we don't really have any rare books or anything, but if we did see a pattern of something consistently disappearing at a particular time, we could go back and review the tapes. I don't have the numbers of how much is lost every year. We generally do an inventory. You know, we just finished one last year. It was the first one we had done in about 4 years. So I don't really think that's the primary purpose. It's my understanding that the original system was put in after there was an incident where there was a man exposing himself in the library. So that was why the system was put in originally. Fortunately, we haven't had that instance again, but, you know, I think that, again, it's the safety and security, not so much, you know, loss of materials, because I certainly agree, you know, losing paperbacks is not going to, you know, be a primary focus of this system.
Last thing, have you had much trouble with graffiti that would also be seen later on a security camera? You know, if the sheriff came to investigate, have you had spray paint that, you know, cost money to wash off, or windows broken or anything like that?
No, we have not, so
Okay.
don't
Thanks,
put any
Peggy.
ideas out there, please.
Well, you know, everything's foilable. I know.
Yes, sir.
I have one question. So have, at $42,000, if it came in at that, that's about, you know, for 10-year use. I don't know what the life of this system would be. If you use 10 years, that's $4,200 a year, times 12 months, that's $350. Have we explored Ashley leasing and putting a company in place that would monitor versus purchasing it ourselves?
We have not, so I don't know if that would be something that you could consider. And I would like for Mr. Buzzard and Ms.
You
Carter
don't
to
own
answer your
anything,
technical.
But if it's gonna, if the license system's not long enough, it may be better off to do something.
I did want Randy to talk about, because you were talking about the cost, the large cost. A big part of that cost is storage, storing the files, because the analogs are much smaller files than the digital, but they're also more tedious to review. So the big cost is the.
One of the costs, like she said, is a storage server. The systems from Home Depot usually have a built-in DVR. This one's going to be a rack mount server, and we're going to spec it so we can access it from our network and the library's network, both, which there never was spec like that before. Some of the other hidden costs, we'll have to look at it and see, because it is a big discrepancy in cost. But some of that, probably $5,000 to $7,000, is just in storage servers.
Randy, is it possible for you to provide Pat or, you know, whoever with comparisons? So we can kind of comparison shop a little bit with you?
That's what the IFB would do. So as Peggy said, Ms. Carter is getting ready to issue an IFB, and we could get those bids in, and if we didn't, you know, if you want us to issue an IFB and not budget and appropriate any money, and then we'd know what it was, and we could come back and do that if you wish. We normally don't like to issue IFBs unless we know the funding's in place, because the companies put money into preparing a response to our IFBs, and then if we don't award, but we can do that. We can, we will issue the IFB, find out what the price is, and come back to the board if you wish us to do that, so.
I would like to do that.
Yeah, I don't want to do anybody's job for them, but we are spending the money, and it's our taxpayers' money, and I want to be a good shepherd of that, so.
So we issue the IFB. Can we also see if there's a possibility, if there is an opportunity to lease a system through one of the service providers, and would that, what would the cost of that be? They can come out and give you a proposal. They do it all the time.
We could bid that as an alternative, so we could have the supplying the equipment, and then we could have it leasing the equipment and an annual cost associated with that, because there would be a cost
It
for
would.
them to monitor that as well.
Understand. Thank you. So at this time, we're gonna,
You either vote the motion down, vote the resolution down, or you defer it, one or the other. So, and we're fine either way.
How long do you want to defer it to do this work for us?
IFBs can take 2 months, so I would just recommend that you vote the resolution down, and then we'll just bring it back to you.
I'm not sure we want to go on record saying we're opposed to it. We just want more analysis done.
Just table it, that makes it go away.
Okay.
Motion to table, if it's
Mr.
not
Chairman,
taken off the table, it just
Mr.
disappears.
Chairman, I move that we table this motion.
Second.
we have a motion to table, motion R 2016. Let's see where it is.
10A.
I've turned the page, I apologize. Which one is it?
It's
10A.
10A. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, do we need a roll call? I apologize. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay. At this time, we'll move on to, let me get back, I flipped the page already. 10B, which is the presentation from Pat. Keep in mind that this is a presentation we haven't seen, so we're not prepared, we're seeing it for the first time. We do have a meeting on February 29th, March 7th, March 14th, and March 21st that we will be dealing with, being able and more prepared to ask questions and work on the budget. So,
Board, on the dais in front of you are your budget books, and the PowerPoint presentation is found under tab 1. Oh, excuse me, it is found right in front of tab 1. If you would like a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, it's right in front of tab 1. The budget process for the board started on January 4th when we had a discussion about the board's budget guidelines, and this is, as I understand, the budget guidelines from January 4th. Reduce the real estate tax rate to 85 cents, reduce the real estate tax rate to something less than 85 cents, reduce the depreciation schedule for business personal property tax, reduce machinery and tools and business personal property taxes from $3.60 to $1.80, and estimate sales tax at 14% increase over the FY16 estimated actuals. The board also, the guidelines stated to fund Phase 2 of the class and compensation plan, fund broadband, fund the CIP, fund pay-as-you-go capital, fund economic development, and one statement said, grow us into lower taxes, not shrink us into lower taxes. So I find it conflicting what the direction on reducing the taxes and then the things that the board wanted to fund. It made for a very challenging budget process for the staff. I had told the board that I would bring forward to you a budget at a real estate tax rate of 85 cents, and I've done that. I'll let you know things that you could cut if you wish to cut, to go down below 85 cents, but I will also point out some things that were not funded that you asked potentially to be funded because the real estate tax rate is at 85 cents. In addition to the budget guidelines, I also used best practices for governmental budgeting in putting together this budget. In best practices, have you maintain your fund balance at whatever the board's policy is, and this board's policy is at 15%, so it does maintain a 15% fund balance. It is a balanced budget without using fund balance. That's an important distinction, because by state law, you have to have a balanced budget, but you are allowed to use fund balance as one of your revenue sources. And fund balance, as you know, is a one-time revenue source. So it is balanced without using fund balance, and there's no use of one-time funding sources for operating revenues. In addition to the board's budget guidelines, the board also adopted Vision 2030, which had 3-year priorities. And so some of the items that we have been working on from the 3-year priorities are coming forward now in this budget recommendation. And those are EC1, which is implement the economic development plan, EC2, which is implement the EDA reconstitution, implement business-friendly practices and policies, which is EC4, HS2, which is transfer the emergency communications to the fire rescue department and relocate the 911 center, FA4, which is capital improvements and maintenance, IN4, which is public safety communication system, and IN7, which is implement a county-wide broadband system. So those are the policies and the directions that we worked with when we put the budget together. Again, it was very challenging. I wanted to bring also to you an update on our real estate assessed values. We reported these to you in November of 15, and we brought back to you that very same update in January, on January 4th. But there's been changes since that, and they took place in January, and it was when the assessor brought in their final reports, and those changes are highlighted in yellow. So we started January 14th at $3.3 billion. In 2014, we had $39 million of new construction, and in 2015, we had $54 million of new construction, and we were reporting an increase in value of $212 million. The auditors made adjustments and reduced that increase in value to $191.9 million. So the new assessed value reported by the assessors prior to going to the BOE went from 3.6 in November down to 3.58 in January for adjustments that the assessors made. And as you know, the assessors have an appeal process that ended December 31st, so these are the results of the assessors' appeal process. What that means is instead of our real estate increasing by 6.4%, our real estate increased by 5.8%. It's still very good news. And if you look on the next slide, it's still an 85-cent tax rate. It's just that in November, it was 84.5, which rounded up to 85, and now it is 85 cents. I know that's very insignificant amount to everyone. It's still 85 cents. However, in doing our revenue projections, one day in January, we lost $170,000 in real estate tax revenues due to the reassessment that came in. So now, instead of a penny being worth $318,000, a penny is now approximately $314 million. 314,000. 5 cents is still $1.5 million. And the unknown that is out there is the BOE adjustments. The Board of Equalization is meeting now, and people can still file until the end of March, so we still don't even know how many properties we will be filing. So that all worked into our budget process too. In the county's budget, we have 8 operating funds that we budget for. They're listed there, and those operating funds totaled $54.4 million in 16, and we're proposing $56.8 million in 17, approximately a 4% increase. I'm going to go through fund information. I'll let you know which fund I'm talking about, and I'll also let you know if I'm talking about a total fund. So in the next slide, I'm only talking about general fund. General fund is $49.4 million. It's a 4% increase from the prior year. And The increase of $1.8 million is made up primarily from 4 revenue sources. Real estate at 85 cents is going up $557,000. So that $557,000 is all new construction because we've equalized the tax rate, and so the 557 is all new construction. The personal property is up over $501,000. Sales tax is up $560,000, and motor vehicle is up $116,000. And when I say up, it's a comparison of the FY17 budget to the FY16 budget, are these numbers that you're looking at. These are general fund. In the state and federal support, this is the amount of money that we receive across all funds. We receive approximately $8.5 million of state and federal support. When I say all funds, it's all county funds. At this point in time, nothing in the budget reflects anything from the schools. So $8.5 million is what the county receives. It's an increase of 3.8%. The general fund only receives a $65,000 increase, but the social services fund is receiving a 23% increase of $81,000 from the state, and the CSA fund is seeing a 20% increase from the state of almost $170,000. In the utilities fund totals $2.7 million in revenue. It's a $96,000 increase, or a 4% increase from the prior year. We are recommending that the water and sewer rates go up, the connection fees are going down, and the transfer from the general fund is increasing by $61,000. We started an initiative last year where we didn't want the general fund transfer to increase. In most water and sewer, water and wastewater utility funds, they are fully self-supporting. In our utility fund, 2.3 million of the 2.7 million comes from the general fund. It's very important to note because that is 7.2 cents on the real estate tax rate. So when you start comparing Powhatan's tax rate to another locality's tax rate, keep in mind that 7.2 cents of the tax rate is supporting the water and sewer system. So we have increased the water and sewer rates. We didn't want to make very large increases. I think we increased them 10%, but we didn't want to go any higher than that to cover the $61,000 additional funds coming from the general fund. I'm now speaking about the general fund, and the general fund expenditures are the same, obviously, as the general fund revenues at $49.4 million because it's a balanced budget. It's an increase of $1.8 million. And it funds 3 things primarily. First is $612,000 has been set aside for future debt service. That was part of the plan last June when the board adopted their CIP, is that increases in sales tax, increases in personal property tax, and new construction in real estate, approximately $200,000 from each one of those would be set aside for future debt service. So even though we had increased sales tax, personal property, and new construction, $612,000 of that is just being set aside for debt service. It's not being spent on anything else. The county has increases of $689,000, almost $690,000, and there's a short breakdown. Our debt service has been reduced by $119,000, but it has been transferred to capital. So when debt service, which is for capital, is reduced, we have an internal policy that we will not use that for operations. We use that for capital. So it's being transferred. It increases the transfer to the capital projects fund. Health and Human Services is increasing $102,000, and that is for salaries and for services to clients. Employee compensation is $159,000, and position changes are $220,000, and I will go into detail on those in further slides. The amount of money going to Powhatan County Public Schools is increasing by $555,000. Those are primarily the 3 areas of increase. So the county support of the schools, in this table, it shows you the transfer to the Powhatan County Public Schools, the transfer to the SRP fund, and just to remind you on the SRP fund, the county withheld in FY '15, $265,000 from the transfer to the schools, and that is so that we could use it to fund the SRP fund, with the agreement that once the SRP fund was fully funded, that money would then go back to the schools. And that's what's happening now in 2017. The last year that we need to use that money is in FY '16, so that $260,000 is now shown up in the line transferred to Powhatan County Public Schools. So the net of the increase from the SRP fund and the $555,000 transfer to the schools is a net of the reduction of the SRP fund and the additional funds, the transfer, you net those two numbers to come up with the $555,000. I apologize. Now, we support the schools
Pat,
also.
Pat, let me interrupt you because I'm not sure I understand. So you're taking 260,000 off of the 815
Correct.
and reducing it,
Yes,
the transfer to the schools to 555,000?
that is, that
Yes,
math
that's
works out.
correct. They will get a total increase, they will get a total from us of $815,000. But for the cost to us is $555, because instead of transferring the 260 to the SRP, we're going to transfer it to the schools. So currently, we transfer,
Let me ask another question.
okay,
Why would we do that? Why would we transfer 260 just because we're not sending it to Wells Fargo to pay off the trust fund? Why would I just automatically then put it back into the school transfer?
that was the agreement that was reached with the schools, and that was my understanding of the agreement, and that has been my understanding since the beginning, that we
Well,
reduced the transfer.
Maybe I misunderstood, but
Okay.
I thought the agreement was that whatever it took for us to pay it out, we would reduce the amount of the transfer by that amount, and that the goal was to get it paid for in 2 years and get it off the books. And we were going to fully meet our obligations to the people in the trust. So if I missed something, that there was another condition, that money would then go back and be part of the transfer automatically to the schools, not based on need, but just 260 going back, then I missed that.
Okay, I apologize, it'll have to be something for further discussion. It was always my understanding that it would go back to the schools, so that's the way it's in this budget, and you have the, obviously, this is only a proposed budget, so. We also support the schools in debt service, so we've reduced the support of the schools for debt service by $239,000, so the local support has been reduced by $315,000. So if you look at just the transfer to the schools, it's approximately 49% of the net total taxes. But if you look at the total support of the schools, it's approximately, where you add in the debt service, it's approximately 60% of the net total taxes. It's just two different ways that we measure the support of the schools. In employee compensation, I mentioned two totals for you in a previous slide, and those two totals were for the general fund only. So in this slide, when I'm talking about employee compensation, I'm talking about all funds. So these totals do not match the totals that you see on the previous slide for the general fund, because this includes the utilities fund and the social services fund in these numbers. For all funds for employee compensation, the VRS rate has been decreased by 1.75%, and that's a reduction of $133,000. Health insurance is going up 7%, which is $61,000 to the county. It will also impact all our employees by an average of 7%. Group life is increased. Group life is through VRS. It's not optional, and it's through VRS, and it's increasing a little bit. We are funding the class and compensation plan Phase 2, approximately $75,000. And we're also recommending a pay scale adjustment. When the pay and classification study came to you, the consultant recommended 3 different pay plans. They recommended 100% of the averages, 98% of the averages, and 97% of the averages. And what we adopted was 95% of the averages. So we adopted a plan which we could afford at that time, knowing that we are 5% behind the average of the averages, and knowing that every year we're going to have to put something into that pay scale adjustment so we can get back up to 100% of the averages. So this would shift the entire pay scale 2%, and that would mean every employee would have a 2% pay raise, every employee that's on the employee classification plan. The total compensation package is $209,000, $210,000. We're also.
Mr. Chairman, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Pat, I have a question. Can you back up to the health insurance 7% increase?
Mhm.
Is that just the health insurance company jacking up what they charge? Or is this, we've had an unusual number of people using the health insurance, or do you know?
Our insurance company happens to be the state of Virginia.
Right?
We're on a plan called the Local Choice, which is a state-run program, so I don't think that they're trying to make a profit because it is a nonprofit. And so it is based on our claims, on our
Okay.
last year's claims. We are still in negotiations, though, with them, and so it may go down.
So based on claims?
It's based on claims,
Okay,
yes, sir.
thank you.
Because it is a nonprofit.
Thanks.
We are proposing some position changes, and some of these I'll go into more detail later. I'm recommending that we have a vacant planner position and we turn it into a director of community development. I will address that later. We are recommending that we take a part-time library clerk and we have a full-time librarian. This is something that the library has been asking for over 10 years. They have only one librarian there, and that is Ms. Martin. And for the sake of succession planning, in addition to the workload, for succession planning, we need to bring in another librarian. Not to say that Ms. Martin is leaving, because she's not, but sometime in the future, she may wish to retire, and you need to start planning now for that. We're also asking that you take maintenance workers. We have 2 part-time maintenance workers. They work a total of .65. It works better if during the summer months only we can hire part-time maintenance workers, and the Public Works Department was able to do this within their own budget without asking for any other funds. We're asking for 2 recreation technicians. Currently, we have a recreation coordinator who is on the field for every single tournament that we have. So she works during the week, and then she works weekends whenever there's tournaments, and she does need some support for the number of tournaments that we are currently supporting and the number of tournaments that we anticipate that we're going to increase it by. We are asking for a director of emergency communications. We'll go into that one later. And the Social Services Department is asking to have the Community Action Program Coordinator reclassified as a Family Services Specialist. And they will still do the work of the Community Action Program, but they also do other duties in addition to that. So the cost of the position changes are outlined on the next slide. I'm not going to go through each one of those in detail, but I do want to point something out about the librarian. The net cost and expenditure sides for the librarian is $38,000. However, Ms. Martin has been able to potentially secure $15,000 in state revenues to offset that $38,000, bringing that cost down to $25,000 or $23,000. So there weren't very many positions that were funded unless they had something to do with your 3-year priorities, except for this position, because she did give up a part-time position and because she did get state funding. The contribution from the general fund for that librarian is small. In the sheriff's office, we needed to fund the 2 part-time deputies. They were in the amended budget, so we need to get them put into the, it's the next slide. thanks. We needed to get them put into the operating budget. In addition to that, as Sheriff Nunley had reported, we are going to be budgeting for compensatory and holiday leave, and we need to increase that. And we are using some of the savings that he came up with in his salary savings, so I thank Sheriff Nunley for doing that. He requested $30,000 for ammunition. Well, we have fuel savings anticipated because the schools just rebid the fuel contract. And we anticipate fuel savings of $90,000, and we'll use that for the ammunition in the sheriff's office. And as Sheriff Nunley said, we're going to use some of the salary savings for a vehicle, but it won't be the salary savings in the current year because we still have some leave payout. But what we've done is we've built that into his base budget so that every year, starting in 17 forward, there will be a sheriff's vehicle every year that he's been able to fund out of his budget. So the other positions that we are recommending are tied directly into your 3-year priorities, specifically economic development, EDA, and business-friendly practices and policies. We're recommending that you take a vacant planner position and turn that into a director of community development. As the consultant just told you, many localities have an economic development director who spends 100% of their time on economic development. When I came, prior to me coming to the county, there was an economic development director and there was a planning director. And when I came to the county, there was a planning director, but it was vacant, and I filled it with a director of community development because we needed somebody that would do economic development. And Mr. Altman has done a great job of trying to do 2 jobs at once. He is trying to do economic development, and he is also...
Three.
He's also, he is the only person in the county who has a degree, a planning degree, and he is doing the community development work, which is to be overseeing planning and zoning and building inspections. So we recommend that we hire a director of community development. It would give us more depth in planning. We'll have 2 people with planning degrees. And we will have Mr. Altman focus on economic development. We're also moving public works out from Mr. Altman, and it will be under me to even free up more of his time for economic development so that he can be starting on some of those quick fix items that we heard about tonight, including the BRE program, which is very important. The Director of Community Development will take over the task of manning the Planning Commission, doing all the planning work. He'll still report, or he or she will report to Mr. Altman, so Mr. Altman will still be involved. But most importantly, the Director of Community Development will be responsible for creating a business-friendly practices and policies and building inspections and planning and zoning. We want something, as the consultant said, that solutions-oriented staff and having that fast-track and expedited process in place. So, in this position only, we're asking you to approve this early so that we can begin work immediately. I heard many of you say, why can't we start now, and start yesterday? We're asking you, if you would like to start sooner, to approve the Director of Community Development. There are funds in the current year to fund for a position, and if we were to approve it now, we could have someone on board in May or June. If we wait until you approve it in May, we'd have somebody on board in July or August. With that, I'll go on to the emergency communications, to the Fire and Rescue Department, and relocate the E911 Center and Public Safety Radio System. We're recommending that we hire a Director of Emergency Communications and we're hiring them now to manage 3 projects: the radio system, the CAD system, and the relocation of the center. You heard from the radio system consultant that we needed to hire someone just to manage just that one project. We would be asking whoever we hired here to manage all 3 projects. We have a plan for the, you asked me to develop a plan Chief Singer has worked with his staff, and they have developed a plan. It's the Public Safety Communications Center plan. It's found in page 6 of the budget book. And they've also developed, he and his staff, a timeline for the 3 projects and how these 3 projects can be melded together and what needs to be done so that they're all operational. On FA4, which is capital improvements, and IN7, which is county-wide broadband, they're in the preliminary CIP. We're not sure what the board will recommend in that preliminary CIP, so you know there's not any funding for them, but we are working forward on broadband, as I mentioned earlier, issuing an RFP in the next few months. So, the things that we were not able to fund with the 85-cent real estate tax rate, there is no debt service on new bonds, except for what was set aside. Remember, the others was set aside out of sales tax, so I'm talking about there's no new debt service funded with real estate tax rate. There's no funding for pay-as-you-go capital. Company 1 has requested daytime firefighters, and we have no funding in the budget for daytime firefighters as requested by Company 1. The volunteers have asked us for help with recruitment and retention, and we don't have anything in the budget for that. The volunteers asked for an honor guard and uniforms, and those are not in the budget. And you will find out that most of the department requests that were made were not funded, unless it had something to do with keeping the buildings open, electricity, or paying utility bills, or paying maintenance contracts are really the only things that got funded in the department requests.
We ask a question? So do we have in the back, I'm sure, do we have the list of the requests from the departments in our package?
No, you do not, and we weren't going to develop a list, but you will see the list of requests that came from constitutional officers and from the library, but
Okay.
not from my
Okay,
department.
Not
but-
from your department, okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Pat, where you say no debt service on new bonds, so tonight, for example, we voted to go forward, with this first step, which was start working with Davenport for the bond, for potential bond issuance that we would approve by resolution. So we wouldn't have at 85 cents, the way the budget is being presented now, any money for the debt service to pay on that debt if we decide to go forward.
The money that you would have on that debt, if you decided to go forward, would be the $612,000 that came from sales tax and personal property tax. When I say debt service on new bonds, I'm talking specifically to the real estate tax rate. So when we did the analysis a year ago, if you remember, DA said that part of the real estate assessment increase would be used, 1% of it would be used for the debt service. That 1% equals approximately 1 cent. And so that means if you were going to do that, that would be a tax rate of 86 cents. So the tax rate would be reduced. We're going to bring to you, and you saw scenarios from the financial advisors that suggested if you went one route, you may need to raise the tax rate 3 cents. I don't want to say raise the tax rate 3 cents, because the tax rate is 90 cents, and of that 90 cents, you would need 3 of that to put towards debt service. That's in addition to the $612,000 that is coming from sales tax and personal property tax. So you have scenarios from the financial advisor suggesting that some part of the 5 cents, that is, when I talk about the 5 cents, I'm talking about the delta between 90 cents and 85 cents. So,
But that's, the 3 cents is based on us doing everything that we discussed the other night.
the 3 cents is based on you doing everything that you discussed and financing interest to the tune of
Financing interest the first 2 years.
Assuming-
That was approximately $3 million.
Assuming that the rates were the rates that they're using, and we've asked them to look at, what could happen if your rates were a little differently, and we kept our policy at 12%, and that we also we could trim down projects, to.
That was one of the things that we're going to be doing, is we're going to be costing out projects and looking at, and, things in the language that we used around the table last time, looking at things that we absolutely have to do and prioritizing things that we would want to do and things that maybe that we could, attach a lesser priority to. And we're going to be looking at, I hope, very quickly, what is going to be the impact, going forward with the $35 million for the new junior high. Is the 612 going to cover that, or is it going to require us to do something else with the budget going forward? Those are the types of things I'm going to be looking at.
That's coming to you on the March 9th
Yes,
meeting
sir.
with the financial advisor. So I understand, I want to address something first on the not funded, and that is the firefighters for Company One. We are not leaving the Company One hanging without firefighters, and I should say we're not letting the citizens. Chief Singer has found a SAFER grant, and I'm sorry, I don't know what the acronym for SAFER is, except that it hires firefighters. And so he is making an application for firefighters. If we are not, and the SAFER grant would pay for the firefighters for 2 years, but then they're assuming that the county will pay for the firefighters after that, but it would buy you 2 years of not funding the firefighters. And if we were not to get the grant, it would be our recommendation that you do fund these firefighters for Company One. In addition to that, the SAFER grant does allow you to request funds for recruitment and retention of volunteers, and Chief Singer is also making an application for that grant also.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Williams.
I'd like to ask the chief a question. That grant, it says after 2 years, we would have to pick up the cost, right?
You're not required to, they used to require you, but now it's optional.
But to keep the firefighters, we would.
Correct, if you
For the
wanted to
fire.
keep the firefighters.
That was my question. Chief,
Chief Singer, actually, this year, that's one of the reasons we're applying for it. Originally, the SAFER grants you would pick up like 25% every year. They ran for 4 years. The first year was fully paid, then it started chunking out, while by the end, you had to retain the firefighters.
then you're committed, whether or not you had an excess of volunteers or whatever, you're
But the
committed.
grant also did require that you continue the employment of those employees for 3 years past the end of the grant cycle.
Exactly.
You were required to.
You were required to.
Exactly, that's
This-
what I was getting to.
But
We
this
had a
year-
surge of volunteers that come in. We would still have to carry forward for 3 years, as you said, with the.
But no, that's not the way it is this year. This year, they have changed the program. They are fully funding the firefighters for 2 years. So it's a 24-month grant cycle. At that time, you can reapply again if you're going to lose the funding for them, but you are not required to keep them past the grant cycle at all.
Oh, that's good then. That's much better than usually the way it works.
Right.
Thank you.
So that was exciting to see that they changed that.
Follow-up question?
Yes.
How many can we get?
We're planning on asking for 10, and we'll talk about that more as we go into the budget meetings, because we're not just looking at staffing just the firefighters at Company One. We would start pulling in some of those contracting services that can be replaced with our own employees instead of doing it contract-wise.
Sounds like a pretty good deal.
Working hard already. It opens this morning.
Well, just one comment. As we talk about this, I want to make sure that we communicate to our volunteer firefighters that they're much appreciated, that there's not going to be a stepping on their toes, so to speak, that this thing is brought in and integrated well. And I think I've mentioned this to you. If we have a volunteer who volunteers for us and would like to be a full-time firefighter, and and they're all even across the board, I would hope we give the jump ball to people who are working within the county. So
I agree with you.
thank you for working on that grant.
One follow-up question to that, sir, if you don't mind. What would it do? We're trying to pay for a couple, but also increase retention and recruitment.
Yeah, the recruitment and retention is actually, I asked for a position to come into my office specifically to deal with that full-time.
Okay.
Because it is that type of position, and SAFER allows for us to hire firefighters. It also allows you to I can apply for and get that position funded actually for 4 years if we get the grant for that position.
All right.
So that will assist us in our recruitment program.
Do you see a difficulty here with bringing in professional firefighters
No.
impacting volunteers in a negative way when we're trying to retain and recruit them?
Well, like I said, we're not trying to negatively impact them. Company One has requested that we give them daytime assistance during the daytime.
Good point.
Because we're very limited there. It's not like I'm going out and we're gonna start putting them in every firehouse. We're trying to put them where they're needed to better our response plan and specifically to help Company One during the daytime because they've requested it.
Thank
I
you.
also would like to make a clarification. All of our firefighters are professional, whether they're volunteer or paid. So we either have volunteer professionals or we have paid professionals.
Perfect. Thank you, Pat.
And I also want to clarify, because Mr. Melton brought this to my attention, volunteer firefighters saw out on the state website that we were advertising RFPs for firefighters. We were doing that because we had a request from company number one. They are not out in any other, paid firefighters are not out in any other stations. It was a request that came from company one. And so we did ask the contractor that provides us with ALS to also give us bids on what it would cost for firefighters, and you'll get all of that information. But I wanted to let the volunteers know, we're not replacing the volunteers, we need our volunteers.
Thank you.
So I wanted to point out some information on the 90 cents versus the 80 cents as it affects the average residential taxpayer. The average assessed value for residential is approximately $211,000. The tax at 90 cents would be $1,900. The tax at 85 cents would be $1,795. That's a difference of $105. So for every $100,000 of assessed value, the 5-cent difference in tax rate is $50. What I would like to go back to is something that came out of the Board of Supervisors meeting on January 1st, grow us into lower taxes, not shrink us into lower taxes. Once we have a bank in our county, if we were to recruit a bank, that would pay us $1.6 million in bank stock tax every year. That's 5 cents on the tax rate. So if you're going to grow us into lower taxes, you will give us the ability so that we can recruit to develop more taxes so that then we can lower our real estate tax rate is what I would encourage you to do. If you read the newspaper, Chesterfield County has not yet presented their budget, yet the Board of Supervisors has already agreed that they're going to advertise the existing tax rate. And if you look at Hanover County, Hanover's county administrator just presented their budget, and the tax rate is staying the same even though the assessments have gone up. I think we have lessons that we can learn from those counties who fund economic development fully. You reap the benefits of funding economic development fully. So stand ready to answer any questions you might have, but we do have our first budget work session on February 29th, a week from tonight at 6 p.m. It's, of course, they're all open to the public. The budget document will be out on the website by tomorrow. Put that in.
Perfect. Pat, thank you for this presentation, and I would encourage you, if you get any questions before the February 29th budget workshop, please email them to the county administrator so she can be prepared to help answer them, so we're not, pushing the process back, because we've got, February 29th, March 7th, 9th, 14th, and the 21st available for budget workshops at this point, so.
This is just for Ms. Cabell, because the others have worked this. If you look at the table of contents, it will tell you at what workshop date we're covering what pages. So often you can't read the entire book prior, I'm sure you will spend the entire weekend reading this book from front to cover. But it does let you know what day we'll be covering what pages, so you don't have to read it all at once.
Any questions of staff? Okay. We'll move on to public comment, second public comment period. Page here. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward at this time. Wow, quiet group tonight. I'll close the second public comment period. We'll move on.
Wait a second.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, here comes someone. Thank you.
I couldn't let another public opportunity go by without a resident speaking. Michelle Ward, 1925 Hickory Shade Drive, Mosley, Powhatan, Virginia. I'd just like to give my opinion on the proposed budget here for 2017. I have had a few conversations with some of our other county administrators. And being a taxpayer and having a home and also owning a business here in the county, I'd like to speak for myself personally and hopefully many others in the community. You guys are great stewards over our finances. And when you're asking to either lower the taxes or to keep them at the same, I think that it's great as far as the community is concerned, not to shorten the community and the services that are available to us, as long as you're using the money wisely. For example, looking at the annual difference for an assessed value of $100,000, you're talking $50. If you break that down into 12 months, yes, there may be some families that cannot afford that additional $9 and something per month. However, the majority of us can, and I'm sure that if there was a homeowner or a resident that couldn't afford that additional $50 or $100 if it was a $200,000 home, I'm sure they could come to the county and maybe look for some, budgeting variances there. But the multitude of what you can do with that money and a large surplus for the county, and that would be providing firefighters. I'm also a registered nurse myself. My 16-year-old, almost 17-year-old young man that just walked in is also with the fire department, volunteer, and wishes to also follow a paid fire position in the future. And my daughter also runs with the rescue squad and has for the last 4 years and is currently in the EMT program here for the county that the county does pay for once they will get their services back. But just please keep in mind as you're looking at spending our money and either lowering or keeping the taxes where they are, is that I think the majority of the citizens, if you're spending our money wisely and using in good investments with our school systems and with our other programs that we have, that we're in support of that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Ward.
Thank you for your family service.
Thank you for the sandwiches.
Anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the second public comment period. We'll move on to county attorney comments.
I have no comments.
We'll move on to item 15, county administrator comments.
I have no comments.
We'll move on to item 16, board comments.
Mr. Chairman, I have comment. Hey, we only have one meeting a month.
Why is she laughing?
No, we don't have just one meeting.
No.
You're lucky. I was going to make this comment during our last meeting, and it ran over, and I decided not to. But I've got just a short statement to read about the CAFR, which for people out here, we did that at our 4 o'clock meeting. And the CAFR basically is the audit on the county's finances. And just for a very quick background, as I read through the CAFR, which is this thick over the last week or two, there's a lot of tables and numbers in here. There's a lot of paragraphs to read through, and most every sentence is important in there. My father was in the business of accounting and administration and that kind of thing, and I very much understand how difficult this whole process is to do financing and to audit. And the more I read through it, the more I felt compelled to write a statement and read it, so I'm going to. It's less than a page. Here we go. I would like to thank Ms. Weiler, Mr. Altman, Ms. Schubert, Mr. Johns, and the many more on the county staff and the school administration who were given the responsibility of the preparation and fair representation of the financial statements contained in this financial audit report. I'd also like to thank the firm of Brown Edwards Certified Public Accountants who conducted this audit and expressed their opinions in accordance with generally accepted auditing practices. I am encouraged by the results. This audit is good news for the citizens of Powhatan. A few things in particular from the CAFR and associated reports stood out in my mind. First, our net position, in other words, our bottom line, increased by about $3 million over the prior year. This was in part due to the fiscally responsible choice of refinancing and paying down our debt. Next, our government fund balances, which is kind of like our checkbook, increased over $1.5 million, strengthening our county's ability to meet its spending obligations. Unlike Washington DC, this government did not spend more than it took in. In addition, our general fund unassigned balance, which is kind of like our county's rainy day fund, equivalent to 15% of our operating revenues, was maintained, giving us security against unforeseen economic downturns. Equally encouraging are the positive comments consistently found throughout the auditor's reports and the letters to the board, and I refer to comments such as, and I'm quoting, "The continued growth in sales tax and the start of new construction indicated that Powhatan is recovering from the downturn of 2008. Another one, "All significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statements in the proper period. The financial statement disclosures are neutral, consistent, and clear. We encountered no significant difficulties in dealing with management in performing and completing our audit. No disagreements arose during the course of our audit. In summary, this audit paints a picture of Powhatan County as recovering from the recession, having greater net worth than the year before, a stronger checkbook, a more secure savings account. In addition, we can all be proud of our county staff, which submitted financial reports on time with a high degree of transparency, accuracy, and professionalism. They are to be commended for their hard work, and this audit clearly shows that the people of Powhatan have a lot to celebrate, and we're moving together in a positive direction." Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Norvig. I have one quick board comment. If you saw what Pat presented tonight, we asked her to build a budget. We said, reduce the tax rate, cut the machinery and tool tax, blah, 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 cut. But then we want you to also tell us how to fix, and spend. So staff and Pat have worked extremely long hours. I have been through the village. Last weekend, Mr. Norvig and I spent all day Friday and half a day on Saturday in a training class. When I came through the village, Pat and some of her staff were at the county administration building working. Drove by on Sunday after church. Pat was in the building working. Drove by this weekend. Pat and some of her staff were in the building. I applaud them for the hard work they put into bringing this budget to us with the data in it, and it's going to help coach us through the ability to make a good informed decision that's best, as Ms. Ward said, for all of the people of the county. So Pat, thank you. To your staff, thank you. And I'm sure we're going to ask more questions, and you may scratch your head, but that's what we do. So thank you for all that hard work. Any other comments?
What he said.
Okay. So at this time, we'll move on to closed session. Tom, would you lead us into closed session?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Powhatan County desires to discuss in closed meeting the following matters: 2 matters concerning the salary or performance of specific personnel and consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body, and consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by the public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. And whereas pursuant to sections 2.2, 3711A1 and A7 of the Code of Virginia, such discussion may occur in closed meeting, now therefore be resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Powhatan County that it is authorized the discussion of aforesaid matters in closed meeting.
I will make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion to go in closed session? Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We're in closed session. We ready? I hereby reconvene this regular meeting of the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors, an open meeting, and request the clerk of the board to conduct a roll call certification vote of the supervisors to be included in the minutes of this meeting.
Do you certify that, to the best of your knowledge, only matters discussed in the closed meeting were public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just conducted? Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Nordvig?
Aye.
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Melton?
Aye.
Mr. Tucker?
Aye. There being no, excuse me. Nope. At this time, Mr. Tucker, I think you have a motion or two.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we supplement the sheriff's pay by $10,000 effective January 1st, 2016, in recognition of his supervision of animal control.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion as presented, do we do roll call? All in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, I further move that we authorize the chairman of the Board of Supervisors to sign a settlement agreement with McBride Dale Clarion, subject to the county attorney's approval and incorporating the details discussed in the closed session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion as presented? Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you.